10 once mythical beasts. The animals on this list were formerly believed to be myths, but were later shown to be real. Many of these mythical beasts are now so well known that a zoo wouldn't be the same without them. Even though gorillas are now well known, they were once only a myth. After returning from African jungles, explorers would recount tales of hairy, enormous man-beasts with a horrible anger and strength who had a bad habit of kidnapping and raping women. The gorilla was unknown to science until relatively recently because scientists rejected such tales as absurd. The Greek explorer Hanno is thought to have written the earliest account of gorillas in the 5th century BC. Hanno described an island filled with savage people, most of them women, and covered on hair after visiting the western coasts of Africa, potentially to Sierra Leone or even the Gulf of Guinea. They are referred to as gorilla by our interpreters. Perhaps we should point out that not everyone is certain that Hanno actually saw gorillas. His gorillae might have been chimps. Much later, in 1625, British adventurer Andrew Baytel claimed to have seen a monster that slept in trees, ate fruit, and was covered in hair, save for its hands and face. He claimed that this monster resembled a man the most, but with the stature of a giant. For many more years, gorillas remained unknown and poorly understood. They were frequently perceived as cruel, stupid, and exceedingly violent. It wasn't until 1847 that a Westerner named Thomas Savage released the first official description of the big ape after obtaining multiple gorilla bones, including a skull, while in Liberia. During his travels to equatorial Africa in the following 10 years, explorer Paul du Chaillu became the first contemporary European to witness a live gorilla. Up until 1902, the mountain gorilla, a separate, larger species, was thought to be a hoax. Although I have already discussed the okapi, it would be incorrect to omit it from this list. The okapi was well known to both the pygmies who inhabited the same woodlands in Central Africa and the ancient Egyptians, despite the fact that it was not indigenous to Egypt. However, Europeans disregarded the legends told by the pygmies, viewing the okapi as a mythological animal and even referring to it as the African unicorn. During his exploration of the Congo's jungles in 1890, Henry Stanley developed an interest in the native word okapi, which he mispronounced and recorded as ati. The name was used by the pygmies to refer to a giant animal that they occasionally caught and consumed, as well as the non-native domestic horse. After reading Stanley's novel, a certain Sir Henry Johnston, who would go on to become governor of Uganda, became fixated with the odd creature. He discovered the animal's tracks and bits of striped skin, which the pygmies claimed belonged to the enigmatic okapi. For the first time, experts were interested in the beast and made assumptions about its identity after Johnston shipped the skin to London. Was it a jungle zebra of an unidentified species? Or perhaps a primordial Hipparian proto-horse that survived late? They provisionally assumed that the animal belonged to the horse and zebra genera and named it Equus johnstoni because they lacked a better specimen. Johnston eventually obtained a whole skin and a skull in 1901. Scientists were completely taken aback when he sent them to London. The animal bore a striking resemblance to some fossilized remnants of an ancient giraffe, relative discovered in Greece in 1838. The enigmatic African unicorn was revealed to be the only surviving relative of the giraffe, not a zebra or horse. These largely vegetarian black and white bears, which scientists refer to as charismatic megafauna, are among the most well-known creatures in the world today. But even in China, they were almost unknown for generations. In fact, the gigantic panda was not shown by Chinese artists until the 20th century, despite the fact that they had consistently shown bamboo forests and black bears since ancient times. Until French missionary Armand David delivered the skin of a killed specimen to Europe in 1869, rumors and descriptions of a mysterious white bear discovered in Chinese highlands were considered myths. It wasn't until then that biologists acknowledged pandas as actual animals. In 1916, German naturalist Hugo Weigold saw and purchased a giant panda cub, marking the first time a European had ever seen one alive. They no longer sell baby pandas, so don't get too enthusiastic. Interestingly, gigantic pandas are referred to as the great bear cat in China because, unlike other bears, they have vertical pupils just like cats. DNA testing has confirmed what was initially apparent. They are a real, albeit peculiar, member of the bear family. Previously, they were believed to be enormous, abnormal raccoon relatives. Indeed, the now famous giraffe was originally a legendary creature. We must acknowledge that we would find it difficult to accept the existence of giraffes if we were unfamiliar with them, and someone showed us a picture of one. Simply look at them. They are strange-looking creatures. Despite not being native to Egypt, giraffes were rather well known to the ancient Egyptians. Pharaoh Ramses II is reported to have kept a giraffe among other exotic creatures in his private zoo. The giraffe, on the other hand, was considered by the Greeks to be a mythical creature known as the camelopard, which was supposedly created when a camel and a leopard mated. The scientific name for the giraffe, Giraffa camelopardalis, still honors this myth. After some of the giraffes were taken and brought to Rome as exotic pets for the emperor and for display in the Circus Maximus, the Romans became more accustomed to them. But until a live specimen was handed to Lorenzo de' Medici in Florence in 1486, there were no more giraffes in Europe. It is also known that when the Chinese first saw a giraffe in 1414, they mistakenly believed it to be a qilin, a mythical beast from Chinese mythology. The term kirin is still used to refer to giraffes in a number of Asian nations. Oh, and an interesting side note, giraffes did live in prehistoric Europe and Asia. Jason is sent on a fatal quest to obtain the Golden Fleece by his evil uncle Peleus in the well-known Greek story of Jason and the Argonauts. This was the fleece of Chrysomalis, a semi-divine ram sired by Poseidon. According to some experts, the golden coat of a real animal known as golden taking served as the inspiration for the Golden Fleece mythology. The Himalaya is home to this animal. The takin has always been somewhat of a legend. In Bhutan, its origins are believed to be magical, despite being recorded by Western scientists in 1850. A strong and knowledgeable lama is supposed to have visited the nation in the 15th century and been asked to work a miracle by his disciples. After a while, the lama agreed and instructed them to bring him a whole goat and a full cow. People followed his instructions, and to everyone's amazement, the lama consumed all of the goat and cow's meat, leaving only the bones. However, this was not the true miracle. After finishing his improbable dinner, the lama created a new animal by piecing together pieces of the goat and the cow. Then he gave it life with a flick of his fingers. The takin was the peculiar resultant creature. Because of this fascinating mythology, the takin is regarded as the national animal of Bhutan and is one of the country's most revered creatures. Although early historians described dragons as enormous serpents that slaughtered their prey by coiling around them and crushing them to death, we now tend to think of them as somewhat dinosaur-like. Pliny the Elder wrote of enormous conflicts between the elephant and the constricting dragon, whereas Isidore of Seville said that the dragon was the largest type of snake. He said that the elephant would fall to the ground, defeated, and crush the dragon under its weight when the dragon coiled around it and strangled it. Additionally, he said that although dragons were found in Ethiopia, the biggest ones were located in India. I am not telling you, after all, that there are no dragons. Dragons exist, but they are serpents born from other serpents, stated St. John of Damascus in the 8th century AD. They are little while they are newborns and young, but as they become older and mature, they are so huge and fat that they are longer and bigger than other serpents. They are believed to get as thick as a massive wood and grow up to 30 cubits or more. All of this seems to be a clear description of python snakes, which exist in Ethiopia and India, are the biggest snakes in the Old World, growing up to 8 or 9 meters, perhaps more, and kill victims by constriction. To put it another way, dragons and pythons are identical. Even the name python is derived from a dragon from Greek mythology that was so large and strong that only Apollo, the sun god, could vanquish her. Pythons maintained their legendary reputation for a very long time, despite the fact that they were periodically captured and taken to Rome for display in antiquity. The kraken is, honestly, one of the most well-known mythological sea monsters out there. According to contemporary scientists, tales of this dangerous sea creature, armed with thick tentacles and capable of sinking a ship, actually originated in Norway and Iceland. These stories were probably based on sightings of the gigantic squid, Architeuthis. The existence of the giant squid has been documented since ancient times. Pliny the Elder even mentioned them in his treatise on natural history and stated that they could grow up to 9.1 meters long. Now, we know they actually get even bigger. Still, humans hardly ever see them alive because they prefer to live in those deep abyssal waters. However, every now and then, dead specimens are occasionally washed ashore. The Greek Scylla, a multi-headed monster that stole men from their ships and devoured them, as well as the sea serpents that strangled Laocoon and his sons in the Iliad, may have been inspired by the enormous squid, in addition to the kraken legend. Even later scientists found it difficult to accept the existence of giant squids, despite the fact that Aristotle and Pliny the Elder had written about them. In 1861, the crew of the Alecton dispatch steamer had a close encounter with a giant squid and even managed to obtain a piece of the animal's tail. But experts mocked them, telling them that such a creature was against the laws of nature. The enormous squid is still regarded as semi-legendary. Although it has been dubbed the most elusive image in natural history, we all know it exists. The enormous squid was first captured on camera 2 years after it was first shot in its natural environment in 2004. A downed aviator from World War I is supposed to have found Komodo dragons after swimming to a secluded island in Indonesia and reporting sighting enormous lizards along the island's coast. Sadly, nobody took him seriously. According to other accounts, there had previously been reports of, and eventually the stories of land crocodiles and prehistoric monsters prowling Komodo and the neighboring islands became just too persistent to be disregarded. In 1910, a Dutch lieutenant made the decision to visit the island to gather proof of the creature's existence. After he was successful, he sent a picture and the skin of a huge lizard to Bogor, Java, where the director of the Zoological Museum gave the first official description. 2 living examples were later captured during a well-reported voyage to Komodo in 1926. This mission actually served as the inspiration for King Kong, one of the most well-known films ever made, which was also about prehistoric beasts discovered on a remote island. The director of the film even wanted to include Komodo dragons. However, in the end, this was not feasible, so he substituted animated dinosaurs for them. The largest lizards in the world are Komodo dragons. One contemporary myth about them is that they don't have venom and that the deadly bacterium in their mouths causes blood poisoning in their victims. Dragons are the largest venomous animals on the planet, and while it is true that they carry a lot of harmful germs on their saliva, new research indicates that they may also create potent venom that causes bleeding and paralysis. The Xiphias, also known as the sea owl, was a mythical sea monster that was reported in medieval times. It was said to have enormous eyes and a mouth that resembled a beak. Fortunately, it was also very difficult to spot. The creature was said to be huge in size and capable of destroying a ship when angry. Scientists now think that the little-known beaked whales served as the origin for this story. These enigmatic cetaceans resemble enormous dolphins, but are not closely related to them. They inhabit deep seas and are rarely observed at the surface. Albeit, like other whales, they must breathe air. The majority of our knowledge on them is derived from dead specimens that were washed up on the coast. Certain species can only be identified through carcasses or even bones discovered on a distant beach. Scientists have named one species of beaked whale Ziphius in honor of the legendary animal. Due to their historical mythical status and current semi-mythical status, beaked whales are deserving of the second spot on our list. Although scientists would do anything to learn more about these enormous animals, the sea owl doesn't appear eager to share its mysteries just yet. Although tigers are among the most well-known animals in the world, this wasn't always the case. The tiger was a fabled animal to the ancient Greeks, known as the manticore, from Persian martia, man, and swar, comber. It was mentioned in Indica, a treatise about India written by a certain Theseus that was formerly well-liked by Greek naturalists and historians, but is now unfortunately lost. In his description of Greece, Pausanias states, "I am inclined to believe the beast described by Theseus in his Indian history, which he says is called Manticorus by the Indians and man-eater by the Greeks, is the tiger. However, I believe that the Indians' excessive fear of the beast is the reason behind the false narrative that it has 3 rows of teeth along each jaw and spikes at the tip of its tail, which it uses to defend itself in close quarters and hurl like an archer's arrows at enemies farther away. It makes obvious that the manticore was inspired by the tiger. The latter, which resembled lions in size and look but had reddish fur, was claimed to inhabit India and Southeast Asia, the tiger's primary territory. It was also reported to have a scorpion's tail, which may have been influenced by the tiger's tail's black tips and rings. It was said to be so vicious that it would kidnap adult males from villages and drag them into the woods, where they would never be seen again. With the huge cat, this was frequently the case. Tigers were common in ancient Rome's circuses, but following the collapse of the empire, they were long absent from Europe and once again became legendary. Medieval bestiaries told wonderful tales about them, such as how hunters would steal tiger cubs and, when the adult tiger pursued them, toss a mirror or a crystal ball, causing the tiger to either stop to admire its reflection or confuse it for its cub and give up on the pursuit. It was also renowned for its speed. In fact, the ancient Persian word for arrow is the name tigris, from which the word tiger originates.